Necron Dynasty. At the height of their power, the Necron Dynasty controlled several hundred worlds and was a force to be reckoned with amongst the stars. This ascendancy was a matter of great pride for the Necron nobility, most nobly their pharaoh, Baphomet the Timeless. Presently, they control only two worlds in their capital system, the crown world of Keb and the broken world of Isfet. A half-dozen other worlds of varying significance are also being overseen by the dynasty. The Awakening. When a splinter fleet of Hive Fleet Ketus made landfall on Keb, the tomb's security protocols awoke the pharaoh from the great sleep. Baphomet quickly roused a battalion to combat the threat, but the relentless swarms of Tyranids ravaging the planet proved to be a challenge. Baphomet and the Royal Battalion were pushed back time and again, and on several occasions were even completely destroyed by the ravenous threat. Each time the pharaoh and his forces would phase out and reintegrate in the nearest tomb complex on Keb. Once fully reanimated and repaired, they would sally forth to slow the advance once again. This cycle would continue for several weeks and could be kept up indefinitely so long as the underground tomb complexes were not compromised. Over time, the Necron eventually gained the upper hand as more and more Necrons awoke to join in the defense. By directing a combined and targeted assault against what appeared to be a key Synapse unit, Baphomet's strategy saw two Hive Tyrants fall in quick succession, and the ensuing synaptic breakdown allowed a swift cleanup and rout of the orbiting Hive fleets. It seems that the fleet considered the world more trouble than it was worth, witnesses to have left the system by a recently raised tomb Scythe squadron. Surveying the damage. Once no sign of the Tyranid threat could be detected in the system, Baphomet set to work on rousing any Necrons that remained in the stasis on Keb. Although the Tyranids had ravaged most of the planet, no subterranean tomb complexes were breached, and millions of his subjects had survived and set to work rebuilding the world once above. It seemed that during their million-year hibernation, Keb had been colonized by humans at some point in the relatively recent past. The humans had since had time to regress to what had appeared to be a medieval level of technology. This did not help them during the Cetus attack on the planet, and the survivors only numbered in the thousands in the aftermath. Seeing Baphomet and his skeletal warriors rise from the depths of the planet to push back the alien threat, they considered the Necrons to be gods and worshipped them as such. An accord was made with the humans of Keb. They would integrate with Adamec's culture, they would receive advanced technologies and be considered part of the dynasty, and receive the protection this offered from external forces. In exchange, the humans would provide their less desirables to the dynasty's biomancers for the experimentation and study. The Kebian people were granted one more gift by the great Baphomet. Any human that reached old age after proving to be a valuable asset to the dynasty would be rewarded by receiving their own living metal bodies. They would ascend from the weak organic Kebian to a powerful Necron form. The quality of body received by the human is directly proportional to their ranking within society and their level of contributions towards the dynasty. The broken world of Isfet. Whilst overseeing the resurrection of Keb, and during the first official communications with the Kebian humans, Baphomet tasked numerous cryptex with visiting other Adamic worlds to be the Awakening Protocol and bringing the dynasty back to their full strength. Reports from the Crown system were not promising. Of the 4 other populated worlds, 3 had already been visited by the Tyranids. They were scoured of all biomass. Any remains of the tomb complexes showed signs of breach, and nothing remained of his people, nor any other signs of life. Reports from Ifet were also troubling. Although the world had been missed by the Hive Fleet due to its orbital positioning at the time, the planet was in turmoil. Ifet was once a garden world, but was now a lava-strewn, earthquake-ridden hellscape. Several complexes had been lost, and the remaining ones shared the same problem. All Canopect constructs at some point in the distant past had stopped functioning. The cascading effects of this were devastating. The maintenance of hibernation pods was neglected for seemingly millions of years. Power was lost to millions of pods, irreversibly destroying the denizens within. In a poorly executed failsafe, other pods initiated the awakening protocols prematurely, but failed to open the pod, nor reconnect network or motor functions to its inhabitants. Millions of years of conscious paralysis had turned all survivors insane. With the Canopex no longer functioning, there was also no defense from the flare virus. Scores of Adamec Necrons were infected, mutating them into grotesque forms of their former selves, and breaking their minds ever further. Overlord Aztec of Ifet had managed to survive, though the pod madness had also touched his mind too. All told, Ifet was the home of madness, with all awoken Necrons becoming either flayed ones, destroyers, or simply not surviving the hibernation. Overlord Aztec was titled The Lost, to reflect his world, his people, and his own sanity. Cryptek Tezcalt of Keb was left to oversee the repair and rebuild of Ifet, including a great project to attempt repairing the minds of the unfortunate people of the Broken World. Perhaps the greatest loss of Ifet was the Satan Shard of the Shroud. At some point in the past, the safeguards on the single Tesseract vault upon Ifet had failed, and the Shard had managed to find its way out to freedom. Could the failed Canoptech reconstructs have been responsible for the poor upkeep and the eventual failure of the Tesseract, or could the explosive escape of the Satan have been responsible for a shockwave that annihilated the constructs? The event was lost to time. It would not be known. The Shroud was lost to the cosmos. The Shroud had escaped. Bahamut knew that the retrieval of this shard was a high priority. Although still locked within its necrodemus and only a fraction of its former self, there was the ever-present threat of the Satan remembering its past, or even freeing other shards of itself to restore its original power. If not contained, such an event could be a threat to not only his dynasty, but the galaxy itself. Today, the Necron Dynasty scour the galaxy to resurrect their empire by awakening other worlds lost to the Great Sleep, and to search for and retrieve the Shard of the Shroud they lost all that time ago on Ifet. Bahamut regularly deploys Aztec's destroyers in battle, finding much use for their military advantages. Aztec himself can also be seen from time to time aboard his command barge, crackling to himself as he causes as much ruckus as he can in his own name. The Pharaon has also had access to multiple shards of another Satan, known as the Ossuary, a being that in its time enjoyed collecting the skulls of its fallen victims. This habit continues today in its shards Itru and Waji, which can be seen storing skulls within their very necrodemus on the field of battle. As for expansion, the galaxy is different. The dynasty's greatness must adapt. Even Bahamut could revive all of his worlds at full command, and even considering the near immortality of his subjects, the fact remains. the Necron number is finite. To this end, the Adamek has adapted a more peaceful approach to relations with other species, and even integrating some alien worlds into their empire. Loyal organics will be rewarded with their own Necron forms, though after enough years of service, of course, and the opportunity to support the great Adamak dynasty. Although primarily a peaceful dynasty, at least in comparison to others, conflicts or wars can happen. Chaos, Tyranids and Orcs are an ever-present threat, as are any neighbouring species too large for assimilation and too aggressive for coexistence. Finally, if any indication of the Shroud's presence is detected, Baphomet will stop at nothing to retrieve it. This can on occasion cause poor relations with anyone caught in between. Forus. During a seemingly unimportant conflict in the world of Forus, Baphomet received word from a kill team dispatched that there may be more to the planet than originally thought. Apparently, the presence of the Shroud's activity had been detected on the planet. The Pharaon needed no more motivation. He roused a warband and had the kill team reactivate an abandoned tome complex in the world, one lost from a forgotten dynasty. The newly annexed complex would be their transport from Keb and their base of operations to assist in the recapture of the elusive Citan Shard. The other forces battling it out on the planet were simply in the way. They would need to be cleansed. An alliance with some of the more ancient races of Dari, however, was forged early on, as they at least were wise enough to appreciate the importance of Baphomet's task.